Hello, and welcome to the Magic is Real podcast. I am Shannon. I am your host. I am a psychic medium and a lover of all things metaphysical and spiritual. This is the podcast where we talk about spiritually transformative experiences, near death experiences, mediumship, spirit connection, healing, and all things, as I said, metaphysical and spiritual. If you like this podcast, would you do me a favor and small favor, if you can just click the like button, leave a comment below, even if it's just an emoji, doesn't have to be deep. Although I would love to also get to know you and know who's here. So it really helps with the algorithm to get this podcast out to more people who will appreciate it and who hopefully we can serve. So thank you for those that have been doing that, and thank you for those who take the time to do that going forward. Appreciate you being here. So today I have a return guest. This is Katharine Branham. She is a psychic medium, and she's been on my show before. I have had readings with her personally that have been incredible, and we had a special request to have her back. And she since then has written some more books. So we have a lot to talk about. Katharine, thank you so much for being back on the show. It's so good to have you again.
Oh, it's such an honor to be here. I love you so much, and I love the
I
message
know I love you
that
too.
you share with everyone and the guests that you bring on and the details that they're able to bring forth to the listeners. It's phenomenal.
Thank you so much. Just for a little bit of a recap for those who haven't heard your whole story, just if you can just explain to people who don't know you who you are. I know you're a human being. Um, what you do for your work, your spiritual work, and kind of a little bit about your background.
Oh, well, of course. I am a psychic medium and I read conception to death. So I see how you came into the world and I see how you exit. And you may think that's a little odd, but it actually comes in handy for missing people, situations that when you step into either a reading with law enforcement or a family that's really wanting to know where their missing family member is or what actually happened. It's nice to be able to go in and give them the information and, sometimes as you're reading for someone, you don't quite know exactly what you're walking into. You agree to do the reading, and it's always interesting to see how things open up during the session,
Yeah.
in the reading. So I love I love reading for law enforcement. I love reading for families that need closure and also families that are looking for a missing person. I love being able to give them help in finding them or at least calming them down. I recently had a situation where the guy was missing and I said, he will be back. And the mom was very familiar with my work and she said, okay, I'm not going to worry. He had been missing for 4 days and he finally showed up. So it was basically it was a it was a good ending.
Good.
And that way the family's not so upset and alarmed. But then I also handle sessions that can be a lot of fun. I work for several people who own companies, and sometimes I work with loss prevention to find out who's actually stealing within the company and how they're doing it. So I
Wow.
recently read for someone that I could see the vehicle back up and at what time the items were being loaded into the vehicle. So that was helpful where they could go back through on the camera or the date and get the information that they needed to.
That's really cool. That is my dream job. That my dream job is to do psychic work for missing people, homicides and things. However, I don't think that's my gift. So I have practiced doing it, and I think it sort of merges two of my strong interests, which are um, obviously spirituality and mediumship with I actually started school as a criminal justice major. I wanted to work I wanted to be in the FBI, I thought, but then I realized I just wanted to be Jodie Foster in Silence of the Lambs, and I'm actually an actor. But I just really have an interest in forensics as a whole. not a lot of people say, why do women love these true crime shows? It's not that we don't like the exploitation of the people. We don't like the harm that has come to someone. It's the solving of the mystery and being of service in that way. It's like trying to figure out the mystery and get justice. That's so exciting. So, what a beautiful gift that you have, to be able to see so clearly in those ways. So, I also just want to talk about, not just mention, your. This is your most recent book, from what I understand. It's called "The Root of Everything." First of all, I just want to say the cover has that beautiful, soft, like high quality. It's got a really nice feel to it, which has nothing to do with the content. But this is called The Root of Everything: Unlock Your Energy, Healing, and Stability. And I'll read just something off the back, which is that many people exhibit physical symptoms they're too ashamed to mention as a result of an impaired root chakra. Sadly, they're unaware that their physical condition and the health of that chakra are connected. As in all of your books, you share real experiences of how the root chakra becomes unbalanced and the restoration that can be done at home on your own time. And in this book, you talk about how healers can help you heal, but it's not going to stick if you don't know how to heal yourself. Because really, all we are doing as healers, and I say we because I'm a Reiki, I do Reiki, and we both do different types of healing modalities. We can definitely help somebody, but we are the only people who can really help to keep that in balance. So I'd love for you to share a bit about the book, because this also has a workbook component. It has stories, anecdotal stories about how disrupted root chakra energy has affected people and then how they healed from it, and how you were able to see into their energy to be able to determine that's what needed to happen. But then you actually give practical advice about how you can do it on your own. So, yeah, whatever you'd like to share about the book.
Well, I was really excited writing the book because I've had so many people come to me and say they've spent thousands of dollars with these programs of awakening or opening their third eye. And it's really sad to me to hear that, because if you don't have your root chakra, which contains your balance in life. So if you're fearful, if you're anxious, whatever that is, you really need to go in and figure out where it's derived from so that you can heal that situation, that experience. And sometimes it's just changing the way that you view the experience. So when I sit down to write, I'll get pressure from different clients that will say, "Please share my story. When are you going to share my story?" And when I sit down, I channel what needs to be in the book so the reader can actually get the message they need. So my intent is to write in the frequency that brings healing to the reader. And so I will tell the reader, if you're not ready, don't read it, because once you begin to read the material, even if you have not had that situation happen to you, it begins to unravel other memories that you're holding deep within your tissues. And it could also be relationships or past lives, that things you've never even thought about. So this one, the once you begin to clear the root, the other chakras begin to clear up very easy, all the way to the third eye and the crown. So when I do these group sessions and we do a grounding, they'll experience the grounding, but they'll also notice other things begin to open up and clear for them. So while the root chakra has some very unusual stories, these are stories that most people don't talk about. They don't ask their friends about. They don't say, "Hey, I've got this issue going on," because they're ashamed. But often at times it is about being unbalanced, because your chakra system keeps you aligned, it keeps you healthy. And when the chakra system begins to fail, everything else in your tissue, in your body, begins to fall out of balance.
Yeah, that's so well said. And you gave an example in the book about having a lunch date with a friend of a friend, and you said, and she said, "Oh, what do you see in my energy?" And like most psychic mediums, we hate when people are like, "Okay, what do you see around me?" Because you're not
Right.
there to work, you're there to just be, except that you did see something in advance, in her, and so you were willing to share it, and you said, "On the surface, you are so put together, and you look really, really, like, attractive and, like, you have it all together, but I can see that you're basically a hoarder. I can see that your house is
Right.
a complete mess," to the point where she had lost her cat and didn't even realize that her cat had passed in her own house.
Yeah.
But the significance is, of course, not to shame her, it's to bring to light what's going on for you where you're presenting this way, but there's obviously something so out of balance that you're holding on so tightly to things and fear and overwhelm or whatever it was going on for her, and that you were able to see that and identify that that is coming from a root chakra imbalance. And in that case, you don't have to say like the specifics, but like what, because they can, read a lot of it in the book, but what specifically is an example of like how hoarding is a manifestation of something else? What does it have to do with the root chakra? And I don't mean just hoarding.
Right.
Anything you want to talk about, any difficulty, any kind of pattern that we're in, destructive pattern that we're in. How does that equate to the root chakra? How can we clear that from our root chakra?
Well, I give several different exercises, but one particular one that I love, I'm addicted to is the grounding. And when people get going, they think they're doing it right. But when you start grounding, you never have to focus on what's happening above the head, above the waist. All you need to do is sink down into the earth. And when you're able to do that and you sit there in that space, the energy that's been clinging to your energy field begins to slough off. It really begins to fall away down into the earth. So if you've ever lived in an apartment complex, that you go down to the basement and you put your trash into the incinerator, you know, it's almost like being able to see all the trash that you've picked up from every day going down into the incinerator, the great fiery ball of Mother Earth, and it's cleared. But as that begins to happen, there's a divine light that comes from heaven, that comes from the divine, and it begins to come down through your body, through your energy field, and it begins to fill up the areas that you've sloughed off. And this stuff that sloughs off begins to slough off when you're ready. So if you ground every week or you ground once a month, and let's say 4 months later you realize something else comes to the surface, well, you may say, "Why didn't it come off 4 months ago?" You weren't ready to release it. We go through certain phases in our life where we finally say, "Enough's enough. I'm ready to let it go." And then you're able to clear your energy from that space.
Yeah. And I want to talk about grounding. Grounding is something that I have neglected to do a lot of the time, in especially readings where I'm like, I don't need to, I'm fine. I don't need to ground and
Right.
then finding myself really exhausted the next day and didn't kind of put the two together because I'm like, I feel invigorated when I'm doing readings. I don't feel drained at all. But it's almost like I'm so invigorated that then I'm crashed out for like 2 days after that, for example. But, what are some other examples of well, first of all, what is grounding exactly? How do we ground? And, what are some examples or symptoms of not being grounded?
Well, I list all the symptoms in the back of the book, and then I also explain grounding in detail in the book, along
Right.
with an illustration. And if uh, part of grounding is, many people will think they need to walk around barefoot outside or put their feet in dirt. And you absolutely do not need that to ground. Yes, it's lovely if
Yeah.
you're able to do it. If you feel like that's the proper way you need to do it, you can. But I have been on the phone with a lady who was in prison, and her phone calls were very short. They were like 10 to 15 minutes apart. I taught her how to ground, and she was able to ground being in that type of space, in that environment of people would walk in and get stressed out just visiting, but she would be able to ground with people overdosing, someone's in a fight, someone's yelling. She used it as white noise. And several different techniques in learning how to ground is closing off the sound. I will often tell people when they begin to ground and connect to Mother Earth and allow their body, the weight of their body just to sink into Mother Earth, it will allow them to have that freedom to greet themselves again. So this woman was able to do it in extreme circumstances, 6 feet on the sixth floor cement. And she is still by far the best I've ever seen at grounding because she learned with all the noise. But when people begin to ground, I will tell them, do it in a quiet space where your cat's not going to jump on your lap. And don't do it sitting down with your bottom to the ground. Do it sitting in a chair. And the reason being is many people will fold their legs and they feel like they need to have their hands in a certain position, and that's not the case. Animals will ground. When I watch animals outside, I notice they ground naturally. Children playing when they're small outside, they're grounding naturally. It's when we grow up, we take our focus off of the environment, off of how we're feeling, and we're focused on all these 3D things. We lose focus of our own energy.
Yeah.
So grounding brings you back to that. And even when I've been in extreme circumstances, I was at a uh, DMV waiting to renew my driver's license,
I
and
was at the DMV just today.
well,
It's funny that you brought that up.
it's crazy because there was different people there. And this girl was having a major panic attack, and I knew her number was about to be called. There was standing room only left. She begins to panic. And I walk over to her and I said, hi, I work with energy. My name is Catherine, and grounding really helps me to relax and let go of anxiety. May I ground with you? So I took her by the shoulders. I usually don't have to, but I knew I needed to get her focus off of this. So I just held her shoulders and I walked her through the grounding and I grounded with her till she got the point. When we kind of came out of it, she said, I feel so much better. Like these people are not around me.
Mhm.
So grounding can take you to a whole new level and it can push out all the 3D things happening around you. And it really softens anxiety attacks when you bring yourself down rather than leaving yourself out to all these prickly things that are happening.
And that is the place. It's so funny. The woman there was being so nasty to me. And I don't stress anymore. I'm pretty I'm just I filled out a whole form and then I brought it back. She goes, wrong. And I said, excuse me, wrong box. Well, it does say this is where the odometer reading should go. Yes, wrong box. You started in the wrong box. Fill out the form all over again. I said, I can't just scratch out. No, you need to do it again. And I thought, don't buy into this. This is just a reflection. This is just a mirror. I turned around to the guy in back of me and said, are they just trying to are we on some reality show where they're just trying to rile us up? I said, I'm a spiritual person. And he goes, my wife is a Reiki master. And he said, I am doing the same thing. We put ourselves, literally talked about putting ourselves in a bubble.
Right,
And then this other man came up and started yelling, why have I been waiting so long? And the guy said, sir, you've been waiting for 17 minutes. This is how the DMV works. He's freaking out. And so it's natural that, especially if you're an empath, you're going to absorb.
right.
Everybody in that room is frustrated. Then the other DMV employee comes over. He goes, people be annoying me today. And I said, you're being so lovely, though, and so friendly. And he's like, my patience is tested. And I said, please, I said, look, go listen to the song. Don't worry, be happy. And do not let this dim your light. But if any place is going to stress you out, it's that. And so I think that's what I was doing, is grounding. This other guy in back of me, he's like, I'm just riding the wave. I'm like, me too. I'm just sort of in a meditation by myself. I'm not letting it. So I think that is a really good way of describing it, that you're just coming back to your center
Right.
and not necessarily repelling, just not absorbing everybody else's tense energy, which then is going to lead to a lot of tense energy and therefore a panic attack. So that's really interesting. And you also had mentioned in the book a woman who was having fear on a flight, and you were able to help her ground even though she was up in the air.
Yes, and that was the first time I had the privilege of being on the phone with someone while I'm grounding with them. They had me on speaker, and it was one of my clients and his mom. They were coming in on a private jet, and I'm on the ground waiting to meet with my client. And I had already started grounding with them long before I could start seeing the plane come in. And when I saw the plane come in, I could see the light coming from the bottom of the plane and the light coming down from on top of the plane. And it was the most exciting feeling because I knew that would be the case, but to actually see it, my client got there and I'm just like, I'm hugging all over them because this was a new thing for me to be able to witness. And it was a lot of fun because his mom had never opened up to anything like that. And she was able to push that aside, the judgment of energy work, and allow her body to relax into grounding. So it was
Yeah.
a blessing.
It's reminding yourself that you're always safe in a sense, because even if something scary is happening, at the end of the day, like from a spiritual perspective, we are
Yes.
okay. Like our spirit cannot be destroyed, killed, hurt, whatever. We are really okay. No, like nothing's gonna really, something terrible might happen here, but in the long run, you are still intact and you are still very vibrant and alive. It's just sometimes hard to remember that when you're in a high pressure situation, and it's just reminding yourself like it's all okay. It's all going to be okay. In the end, it's all okay. So that's something really profound. Now, you had also mentioned another book of yours that sounds really fascinating, about a case that you worked on. And yes, please feel free to
Sierra Del Mar.
talk about it. Tell me what,
I
yeah.
I absolutely love this, and I fell in love with her. She really is such an amazing person, but, I was reading for her, several times, and, she lived in Chicago, of all places, and I'm in Texas, but, I really felt drawn to her, and I could see her spiritually changing. Her occupation, um, is quite different. Or was she was a call girl for S&M, and she made crazy money,
Yeah.
like $30,000, $50,000 a time. And she had this client that offered her quite a bit of money, and he wanted her to stay several weeks. And it was one of those crazy amounts that you almost, like most people, they don't say no to. It's
Right.
mind-boggling. And when she didn't respond, I didn't really want her to go on the trip, but she didn't respond. Her sister reached out to me, and her sister's ex was in law enforcement, and they reached out to me, and we worked with them to help with the case, and we found her. So the um, the journey is great because there were spiritual things for me along the journey that I was learning, and we love that. Because you haven't seen everything. People can say they're a psychic medium, they live in the spirit world, but there's things you see that you've never seen before, and you're laying in bed at night and you're thinking about going, I can't believe I saw that today. That was awesome. The plane, just like my clients coming in on the plane and seeing them ground in their beautiful light, grounding down to the earth while they're in a plane. But with Sierra Del Mar, um, while I'm helping with the case and finding her, I'm also talking about other sessions with clients that are pretty tough in there. So it's always interesting to find what's happening. And a lot of the sessions that I talk about in Sierra Del Mar were sessions I was actually doing to distract myself from a car ride to go to where she was last seen. So it was basically I'm in the back doing sessions the whole ride. And one of the sessions that I did in the book, several of them revolve around one client named Roxy. And she's a hot mess. She'll call me and say, this is what she's doing. And it's one of those things, and I know you know what I'm talking about as a psychic medium. You're delivering a message to someone, and they're hearing it the way they want to.
Yes.
And so she'll take the message and go, "Okay, great, Kat." And she'll hang the phone up. And then I'm like, crap, that's not what I meant. She completely, it was like she's speaking French and I'm speaking English, but then she calls me back and says, I did exactly what you said for me to do. And I said, that's not what I told you to do. This
Yeah.
is what you need to be doing. So it shows some lighthearted sessions, but it also talks about some sessions with spiritual growth. And again, that book is written in the frequency that as you're reading, you're having aha moments about your own life and about the life of others that you've been connected to. And maybe you felt like there was a missing link, or maybe you didn't get the full story of the situation they were in, and then all of a sudden the light comes on. You're like, wow, now it makes sense. That's exactly what happened to Stewart, or that's exactly what happened to, and it starts. So I've had clients read the book. Um, Recently, I had one of them read starting with the clean slate, and she came back and said, when I first read it, I wasn't ready for it. And now I read it and I'm just like, I get it now. And I said, that's what they are. That's how they're written. They're written that when you read through them and then you go back, you begin to have aha moments, because as you read it, there's clicks that are happening in your energy field because things are coming to the surface. With
Yeah.
every lifetime and every experience and every interaction, we tuck things into the tissues of our energy field, into those beautiful layers, just like our pockets, at the end of the day with everything in it. And so when experiences come up and maybe we get permission to let go of something and we say, I get it now. I can let go of that. This person did, and this is how they did it. And they just let it go. Or they're able to look at it as that was an experience to get me here.
Yeah. That's sort of like all things. It's as we continue to evolve in our lives and go on our journey, someone can say one thing that sticks with you, and suddenly it's a click. It's another click. It's another click.
Right.
Like every day, there's a click in some way where I'm finding in middle age that the clicks are happening more and more often because now, okay, I've had 50 years of life now. So it's like I see all the connections. Like it's right at middle, I think, for me anyway, midlife, where you're like, click, click, click. It's all coming together. And now I'm getting a greater world view. And I'm starting to have these epiphanies. I had a guy on my show recently, and the way he was describing what happened to him in his near death experience, for me, I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And to somebody else, it might have just been a really interesting story. But to me, it was like, it's validating everything that I've thought. It's all coming together. Like all the pieces are coming together. It was just the way that he told. I was trying to remember. I don't know why I always forget his name because actually it was one of my favorite episodes. But it was just fantastic. And that was just a matter of having heard whatever hundreds of near death experiences. His was one where all of the things kind of were included. And then I started to go, that's what I've thought all along. That's kind of where what I've been thinking is going on over there in the other
Right.
dimension or whatever, wherever
Next
that
door.
is.
Yeah.
I was like, this is validating so much of what I've already been intuiting or sort of learning.
Right.
And so, yeah, can you think of anything off you may not be able to, where you've had even more clicks in your life, even in just in recent history, where there was something where you're like, you're a psychic medium, you've been seeing all kinds of things since, but you still don't know everything. Like, is there
Yeah,
anything? Yeah,
that's what I was saying. I mean, you're still learning.
yeah. Is there anything that you could? I know it might be hard to think of off the top of your head, but is there anything that specifically, even you've kind of gone, you know what? I actually changed what I thought about that, or I just figured out a new layer, like of this, of whatever spirituality, our whole universe, whatever it is, or something that you've learned at any point in your journey that you could think of. I know that's kind of a broad question.
Well, actually, not so much with death and not so much with spirits or ghosts, but recently I've been doing a lot of alien type of
Oh,
readings. And the way the dimensions and the galaxy is laid out and beyond the galaxy, those have been those aha moments that you're talking
yes.
about. And so, of course, I've been writing everything down like I do with everything that happens. But those have been some real aha moments of how their life is, things that they experience, how they see passing and transitioning to a new dimension, or how we would say unalive, uh,
Yeah.
and how it's viewed in various places.
Right. So, and I think I kind of had that revelation later on in terms of, I always thought UFOs, for example, were one thing, spirituality was another, like talking to dead
Right,
people, that's another thing. And that was one of those things that came together for me as I began doing this work was, wait a minute, it's all the same thing. Extraterrestrials are just other souls existing
right,
in another dimension in different bodies or different energy forms. And oh, I just got chills too. So I guess they're saying yes. Literally, we're aliens. We're all aliens. There's nobody that is
right.
alien because we're all part of this source energy. And I'm getting massive chills. So I think they're validating that it's now now I'm diving deep into, we can communicate with extraterrestrials, and these ships that we're seeing are real, and like some of them are, so a lot of them,
Right.
but like they really do exist, in other words.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. So I'll have people say, "Oh, you're a psychic. Well, are aliens real?" Or, so there's some people out there that are very skeptical, but
Yeah,
I have found that, and this is very interesting. This is one of those aha moments. I have found several high level, that we as society would deem very intelligent, highly intelligent. And while some of them may teeter on the edge of agnostic, they are actually very much into the belief of aliens.
yeah,
And so they know there's other life forms. They know there's other life out there. We're not the only ones. I think sometimes when people go, "Oh no, we're the only ones in the galaxy. Can't be anybody else." I'm like, "Come on, are you that arrogant? Do we
hmm,
need to go back to blood testing before people decide they're going to have kids?" Because it is very interesting the level of intelligence that um, those that believe they're very highly intelligent humans that do recognize there's other life forms out there, there are aliens out there, and then those that are still, there can't be anybody else but us. I mean,
yeah.
yeah, it's kind of an arrogant viewpoint, I think, to think there's nobody else out there. So, there's lots of rocks out there that people are living on, and we happen to be one of them.
Right. And I think I used to think of it from a scientific perspective. Well, you can't have life without these particular gases and molecules and oxygen or whatever. But I never took into consideration that there are also other dimensions and that these beings, that was one of my revelations because I'm like, okay, when I was like, I know I told you this. When I was about 14 years old, I was in my bedroom, turned off the light. I was still awake, and this big blue orb appeared right over me. And it was not in my mind's eye, it was literally a physical entity that was glowing electric blue. And this was the 80s. So it wasn't a hologram. I
Right.
mean, there was no light source. We didn't have computers or phones. It was a visible, solid, gaseous, solid orb that had a personality and a definite personality. It hovered over me and looked at me curiously, but it didn't have eyes or a face. I knew that's what it was doing. But I was 14 and I had no reference for this. So I freaked out because it was like Tinkerbell. It was like back and forth and looking at me and sort of like observing me playfully, but it wasn't scary, but I screamed because I had no idea what the F it was.
Right.
And so then it just shot up and disappeared. And it was so fast, it disappeared into nothing. And my mom came running down the hallway, like, "What's wrong?" I told her, and she is a psychic herself and a medium, and she
Right.
believed, but at the time, she was like, "It's just your eyes playing tricks on you. Don't worry about it." And I never could figure out what it was. I researched as I got older, like, what could that have been? And I'm looking for the scientific. Was it some kind
Right.
of gas, or like energy formation of some kind of clash of protons or something? And I found absolutely nothing other than spirit guides. And I kind of bought that for a while. And then later I realized, no, it was an interdimensional being because it literally went in one dimension and out of the dimension. And when I saw a UFO a few years earlier, but I again didn't connect the two in the same house, UFO in the backyard, and it hovered, but then, and I was like, wow, it looks like a helicopter. But then I'm like, wait, it's not making any sound. Everything was so quiet. It was like sound ceased to exist. It was just, but it looked just more like a man made thing, but everything around it went silent. And then I'm like, what is that? And all of a sudden it just shot up and disappeared and it was gone. So, of course, back then I had no reference, but now I really understand these things are coming in and out of dimensions.
Yeah.
So
Your
it's,
mom
yeah.
your mom probably knew it was really an alien, but she wanted to get back to MacGyver that was she's like, "It's nothing, baby. Just lay down," you know?
Right. I mean, my mom is she's where I got this from.
Yeah.
And she doesn't practice as a psychic medium, but she's always been able to see, like, have really spiritual experiences. So I know there must have been someone in our lineage that she got that from as well. But it's really interesting because now I'm putting the pieces together about, oh, okay, now it makes sense that they're disappearing and they're showing up and then they're gone. Where are they going? And maybe they're not going to literally Mars. Maybe it's not one of our planets that we recognize. And maybe they also
Right.
don't are astral beings, so they don't need oxygen. They
That's
don't even need
exactly it.
mouths because they speak
Right.
telepathically.
So
Yeah.
true.
Have you had your own experiences with with extraterrestrial beings?
Well, I was going to tell you, I've got several files that I have been doing automatic writing with individuals who have had similar experiences to yours. And, where and I have one that I'm working through the trauma of it because they were so young when it happened. They were frightened.
Mm,
But what you're experiencing about the void of sound, it's so real. It's like everything is completely quiet. And it's like this openness where it's almost like it's space. It's
yeah.
the isolation of space when you hear that. And that's how they're describing it. And I know that several people can look at it and go, oh, okay, that's what this is, or what is that? And they take a deep dive like you have. But then there's others that are too freaked out to shut the light off at night from it,
Yeah.
depending on what type of reaction they had afterwards. Maybe they didn't have a parent to call into the room. And so they're not turning off the lights now, and they're 50 years old. They still won't turn the light out. But there were quite a bit in the 80s.
Why? Yes.
It's almost like during that time, there was so much they were learning from experiences that we were having and things that we were doing, and I truly believe he was downloading information of what you had learned so far in this lifetime.
Makes sense, I think. Also, there was one in the Berkshires that happened around that time as well. I think around that time that was very profound. It's on Encounters on Netflix, which is a fantastic docuseries,
Wow.
really well done, and each story is different. And that show also put me in the place of this awake, like, oh my God. I would have thought this was nuts before, but now I'm like, this Sasquatch is an interdimensional being. That's why we
He's
don't
def
see them. That's why we don't see them that often, but they are real. And I was like, oh, people have seen them literally vanish into thin air. And
right.
I was like, that makes sense. Because I always just thought it was BS or somebody in a costume, and sometimes it is.
Yeah,
Sometimes
of
there are
course.
people that will fake it, but I'm like, this is all opening my mind to the idea that there are these parallel dimensions and some beings can come in and out. One of my best friends she talks about it all the time. She's like, I look over on the sidewalk, there's this old woman, and she's dressed in clothes that don't look like they're of our time, but she's as clear as day. I can see her physically. And she's like, and she looked at me, but she looked startled, like, you can see me kind of thing. And then she's like, and then she just walked down the road and literally disappeared. And she said, to this day, I don't know what I was seeing, but it was as real. It was like looking at you. It was not an apparition. It was a real person who just disappeared into thin air. So it's like, is that a ghost or is that an interdimensional being or is that a reflection of the past or something? Like I don't know, but there's something there.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that because I have a client that he will call me periodically because he purposely will rent an Airbnb in places that he's heard is haunted or that it's just strange and unusual. And so one night he called me and I've never heard him startled. He's very scientific,
Yeah.
but he called me, he was very upset. He said he rented a Airbnb that there's a row of houses in an abandoned military base, and someone rents out these Airbnbs. When he pulled up, a couple was leaving. They had stayed, I guess, night before several houses down, but he was the only one, him and his dog were the only ones that were there that night. And he thought, this is kind of cool. We can hike around, we can look at this old military base. Anyway, when they got back to the house, he's warming up dinner. He puts on his computer to watch some Netflix, and there's knocking at the door,
Oh, no.
and his
Goodbye.
dog is barking. He looks out the peephole, there's no one there. He calls me and he says, Catherine, someone's knocking at the door. There's nobody, there's no other cars here. I didn't hear anybody walking away. Right then, his spirit guide came in and said, this person, they weren't just like knocking, like a little, like they were banging on the door. I said, your spirit guide is saying there was a murder that took place on that street that's right there. And the person was dragged down where she was being grabbed and she was trying to get help the night
Oh, no.
that she died. And I said, here's what I need to tell you. Be calm, watch TV, turn it up, watch the video, whatever you need to, but you're going to hear the banging again.
Oh my
And
God.
it goes on for 45 minutes every single night.
No.
Yes.
No.
And I said, we could do two things to try to clear it if you're willing to do it. But I stayed with him on the phone and I actually talk about that story and it was murder. But the it was so long ago that she died that she never went into light the way that she was murdered. She didn't know she had crossed. And so every night at that same time, she relives that murder of being
Oh, no.
dragged down and killed over and over again. But we got through the night and I'm on the phone with him like I usually am. And I said, look, it's gonna be okay. This is the last knocking on the door and then it's going to go away. Everything's fine. And the last time she banged on the door, that was it. And then we worked to clear it together. And he said, this has almost destroyed me from renting in places like this. I said,
Yeah.
you shouldn't let it. This is a very rare thing. And this guy does it all the time because he can work remotely. So he travels all the time. He has a tiny apartment. So he just Airbnbs it and he makes incredible money. So he's able to Airbnb it everywhere and have these experiences.
Oh, I wanna do that.
and all he does is drive in his car with his dog.
Oh, how
So,
fun.
yeah, and so that was one of the experiences of it got weird. He's like, "Can you tell me when this is gonna stop, when the banging's gonna stop?" I said, "It's about to stop right before 12, it's like 11:45." I said, "It'll stop at 11:45 because that's when she gets taken down the street."
Oh my God.
But anyway, he said, "I'm gonna call you back." He calls me back, and about 15 minutes later, he took a deep dive real quick on yeah, he heard it was haunted, but he read the story, like, and they talked about the murder that happened there, and it was the jealous husband that killed her.
Oh no.
Yeah, and then he's like, "I found her." He's like, "I'm sending it to you right now." I'm like, "Okay."
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask you about that because there are some people that say that spirits don't get stuck and that those are just imprints of negative energy. And then there are other people that say, oh, we have to help spirits cross over. What do you think about that? Why are there some spirits that repeat? It reminds me of the movie I loved when I was younger called The Lady in White with Lucas Haas in it
Yes.
and Catherine, what was her last name?
I know what you're talking about. It was at a school.
Yes, I love that
Yes.
movie. It's dark, but it's a dark it's I'm surprised they kinda got I think even Disney made it or something where it was like you would not expect because it was a really dark theme, but it was about this little spirit that just kept reliving what happened to her over and over, which is, like, really dark, and this little boy kinda helps her to cross over. Ugh. I loved it, though. I loved the movie, but, what do you think actually is going on there?
Well, I explained it in that book.
Oh, okay.
I explained the how it happens, but whenever an incident happens in a property, that energy of that incident, you and I, anybody who's sensitive can walk in there and they can feel it.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean they're gonna see what happened. They're gonna see it or they're gonna feel it, but they can know someone died here, okay? Or
Mhm.
someone was murdered here, or someone, uh, whatever. But when you actually see the person reliving it, they're like stuck in a loop. And the interesting thing with some of the cases that I've read for and the murders, I see it happening. So if I go in and let's say the girl that was murdered did cross, okay? I will go in and I'll feel what happened and I'll feel my leg get kicked out from underneath me. I'll feel my hip get pushed to the ground. I could feel what's going on if I'm her from the energy of that space. But the spirit of the person doesn't come forward unless like someone says their name.
Oh,
Other than that, they don't care what happened here. They don't care they were murdered there.
right.
They're not lingering.
That's what
But
I mean, yeah.
once the name, I'll say the first name. Or if it's a nickname she went by or he
Mhm.
went by, I'll say their nickname. And then I wait for them to come in.
Yeah,
Because so many people think, um, they'll think, "Oh, I wanna know what my past lives are," and they'll think they had 1 or 2 or whatever, but in essence, people have had hundreds of past lives, and most of the time, they never made it into adulthood. When you think about it, it's mind-blowing, but the perception of children and animals they're dispensable, and women, they're dispensable. You can get another one.
right.
So they would send children into mines. They would send children into, like the coal mines underground before we were able to get a system down there to run coal. They had ponies and kids down there because it was easy for them to fit in
Oh, that's so
small
sweet.
quarters.
Yeah.
So lots of people that I've read for, um, one particular comes to mind, and she had only had a few lives where she actually made it to adulthood.
Wow.
Most of them, she died in adolescence.
Oh, wow. That's so interesting.
Yep. So when you go to a building or a place, you can feel the energy of what's transpired there. But where the person was banging on the door, it's because they were reliving it over and over again, and she needed help to cross. But there's also times where people will pass and they'll be afraid to cross because of something they did in this life that they have it in their mind. They're afraid that they're going to be burning internally in hell. And so a lot of times I'll have to help them across. Well, I'll tell them I can go across to help you, but I can't stay there. I can go with you in spirit. But if they're not wanting to cross, you can't make them. Sometimes it takes a little bit to go back and see if they're willing to do it now. But
Yeah,
the longer they stay out of the light on the other side and out of a body, they become more disoriented.
that is a good explanation. Yeah, I've never known what to make of that because I haven't had communications with, but you can still connect with them,
Yes,
but they're just in a different sort of vibration, or I don't know if it's actually dimension or it's just sort of state of being. So I
right.
wouldn't,
They
yeah,
don't make sense sometimes because they've been out of their body so long.
that makes a lot of sense. And I was going to ask you something about, when you're doing like crime crime cases,
Mhm.
uh, do you usually know? I would assume you usually know right off the bat this person's living or they've already crossed over. I would assume.
Yep, when I get a call early in the morning, I'm half asleep, someone will say, "My friend's daughter is missing, my friend's son is missing." I'll be half asleep, say their name or their nickname.
Yeah,
They will say their name and I'll wait and I'll say they're still alive. Let me sleep for
yeah.
30 more minutes, I'll call and check on you. And if when they say their name and they're deceased, that person comes right in. So when I read for someone and all their deceased come in, they go, "Oh, I want to speak to my grandma Joe." I'm like, "Okay, well, you said her name and she just stepped forward."
Therefore, you know that she's on the other
Yeah.
side.
And so like a murder, like I've read for a few cases that were considered cold cases. And I've seen it to where they come in, and then I've seen it to where the angels have told me this person's already incarnated, but this is what happened. And I felt everything that they went through before their passing, including who killed them. And that's what I talked about and how I found my superpowers when I began to feel that with the murder weapon or one of the items that was on the victim at the time of her murder. When I held them, I felt everything she was feeling at the time of her murder. And so those kind of things are helpful because you'll be
Yeah,
able to tell, was it a man? Was it a woman? In one of the cases, I said, this is how you're going to find the person. He used her debit card after she was dead. After he OD'd her in the bedroom, he locked her in there and with her dog. And he took her debit card out of her purse, went and used it, came back and put it in her purse. So you'll be able to look
on the camera.
and see at the ATM who used her card last, and that's how they got him.
Oh, thank God. How are people so evil?
But they weren't going to check. They weren't even going to check the ATM
Because
card.
it wasn't missing.
It wasn't missing.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
Yep.
There are there's the concept that we choose uh we have exit points during our lifeline, and also we have free will, and also and I want to know if what you think of this is sometimes someone isn't meant to, like for example, somebody has, say, cancer. Their soul chose that contract for some reason, that's how they were going to go out, or did they? It's like I guess the
Right.
question. Um and so sometimes I think, like for example, Reiki healing, if there is a chance they're going to survive, energy healing can really help them get there. But I also think sometimes they're not really meant to survive it for whatever reason, to maybe make their families, maybe their family had a contract with them where they were going to lose them or something of that nature. And please tell me what you think of that. But my question is, when it comes to murders, I've heard Matt Fraser say that isn't something that's preordained. That's somebody interrupting your life path. And that's their free will kind of taking your life. And it isn't necessarily contract. It's just something that happens, which I think a lot of things do just sometimes happen. So along those lines, what do you know about the life path? Because you see life paths when you look at people.
Right.
Um,
Oh. Well, one, I don't want to comment on what another psychic medium believes, but I will tell you for the cases that I've read for, I've had deceased people come forward and say, this was a balancing of what I did to them.
In another
Life.
incarnation.
Now, that's not always the case. It's not always
Yeah.
tit for tat. Sometimes it is because this needs to be brought to light that this is actually going on, like blood stealing. When someone goes in and kidnaps someone just to take their blood and sell it, which most people don't understand, that's a thing. But, um or organs, you know? So when that happens, something like that happens, I usually have to go in and see exactly why that happened because it's not always, um, "Oh, it's because they did it to someone else in another life." Sometimes it's so that like with an illness, it's so the medical practitioners that are working on that person at the time will understand what needs to be done, like, almost like this person is saying, they'll be the teacher in this
Yeah.
moment to teach them. Or it could be for the family to do what needs to be done to help them to step up, and it's a spiritual lesson for them. But in cases where, like you said, an energy practitioner is working on someone that is ill, there's two things that happen within the energy field when someone's working on another person. One, it begins to bring things up to the surface. But like I explain in my books, if someone's not ready to release it and they're holding judgment to themselves about an incident that they did or they feel guilty for, it will never come to the surface. And
Right.
most of the time, depending on the age of the person, they grew up in a time where they believe in keeping everything secret until, they die. And
Yes.
so it doesn't come up. So they could have a bunch of energy sessions and it not work.
Right. Yeah, it is a case by case
Yep,
scenario then. Yeah, I just wonder how much control. I guess that leads me to that question about how much is free will and how much is predestined. And I think you would say it's kind of dependent on each person and each circumstance.
correct.
And also, there's so many ways to get to a single point. So maybe your lesson is you have to learn self love, but there could be many different things that happen that
Right.
lead you to that. And if you decide to go choose your own adventure to the right, one thing might happen. You might choose to go left. One thing might happen, but it might either way lead you to that feeling of, I really need to learn to love myself because not doing so led to this circumstance or to this circumstance. But the end result is the same that you're faced with. Where did I abandon myself, for example? So as long as the themes come up, and that's another thing at the age I'm at, I'm starting to see now exactly what my life path has been and why. And I'm like, and I'm writing, and we'll talk about this too, because I know you had told me in a reading, you're like, yeah, psychic medium, that's great, but that's not really like the big thing. You had told me it's the book you're writing, and I'm writing it still. It's three-quarters of the way through, so I'm getting there.
Yeah,
You were like, it's more about that, which is great. I love psychic mediumship. I love doing mediumship work, and I don't do what I don't. We have different kind of sets of
yeah,
skills.
everybody, yeah,
Yeah, I can do it, and also I can't necessarily or haven't discovered that I'm able to do sort of spirit guide readings or
right,
solving crimes or whatever. I'm more evidential and I bring through a lot of like names and memories and evidences just to show the person that they're there. It's like that's kind of it's my favorite thing, but also there's a bigger thing in helping other people heal from, in my case, like lack of self-love.
right.
So, um I think now as you start to sort of put the pieces together, you're like the themes start to become, oh, patterns. Wait, did you say this in you said something in your book about it's not, was it you said it's, I heard this today. It's not your personality, it's a pattern. Is that you? I don't know. I
No,
heard that somewhere today.
but that's true.
Yeah. Can you speak to that a bit?
I can because, most of the time, and back to the book, most of the time people they were programmed by family, by church, by culture you keep it quiet. Anything that happens in your family, you never speak bad about your family. And, let's just face it, we can only control ourselves. We can't control what our family has done, what our neighbors have done. And so when we have been brainwashed, you don't talk about it, you don't bring it up. It makes us feel ashamed of that item. And then where do we tuck it? We tuck it in our energy field, and then eventually it erupts into something else.
Yeah.
So if it is an embarrassment towards our physical appearance, maybe we were beaten, maybe, we were abused, sexually abused, those items will stay in the energy field around those chakras that govern that area and eventually go into the organs. So
Yeah.
that's one of the things I really talk about in the book, and being able to clear it. Um, there's so many people that still carry so much shame because it was just programmed into them. And if they could run free and just say, this, and this happened, they'd feel better.
Yeah.
But they believe in taking it to the grave. And it's been interesting to unravel, especially when someone comes to me and says, my mom told me I was adopted and then she died. Someone's telling me that. So their big thing was to go look for their biological mother, and I get that.
Yeah.
But as she was saying that, her mom that raised her came forward and said, "You don't have to look for far. It's your aunt. She had you when you were young.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I couldn't have children, so I took you." And when it came in with her spirit guides, they said it was meant to be that way because this is why that client became so successful and went to school, because she used her aunt as a cautionary tale of how she didn't want to be.
Yeah.
Her aunt partied. I mean, she took her to concerts. She was a fun aunt, but she lived a very dangerous life. And she knew, I've seen how my mom lives and I've seen how my aunt lives, and I don't want to live like my aunt, when essentially her aunt was her mother.
Wow. Yeah, that makes so
Yeah.
much sense. And you said that too, and that so many of our things come from sometimes even something that happened before we were born and we didn't even know about it.
Yes.
That can affect us now, or I don't know if it's the same as epigenetic trauma, but because I know there is actually also physical things that happen in the DNA when you go through trauma, which is why like Holocaust survivors will give birth to anxious children, and it's they weren't there, but their mother was anxious and their grandmother was anxious for good reason, for example.
Right.
And so that's a thing too. But I think familial anxiety, well, familial trauma in general, even if it happens before you were born from a spiritual perspective, can also affect you today without you even knowing it.
Yes. And, it's funny you say that because I have another stack of cases that I've been working on from organ donors, people who have accepted an organ from an organ donor, and they're having dreams and they're having memories as if they're a man walking down the street with their little boy. And that tissue, because our memory is all in the tissues,
That's right.
that tissue was in the eyes that she received.
That's so wild. I've heard that before.
Yes, and so it's been really interesting. That's been sort of like, I don't want to call it a hobby, but it's been very interesting to organize those cases and put them together for study.
Right. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
that's so yeah, I could that is really fascinating. You have such a such a great job overall. And I would love to ask too about um I know we talked about the fact that, when you do readings, you're really reading into well, spirit and also connecting with the spirit world and then also connecting with people, their own energy, their life path, what you can see they need healing. I'm curious about collective energy because I believe that we are all one, literally, and that we are not actually separate beings. We're all sort of the same source energy stuffed into different bodies and different brains to have individual experiences, to experience contrast. And I'm very interested to hear your thoughts on that as well. But is there a way? Because I'm really hoping. I mean, obviously, every single lifetime or every single decade or whatever period in history has been traumatic. There's always something traumatic happening. There
Right.
always has been since the dawn of time, since there were enough people to have conflict. And is there any like I think so many of us feel so helpless, like watching all these horrible things happen around the world, but there's you feel like what can I do though? What can I do? And people I think feel tempted to watch it so that they feel like, well, I have a responsibility to absorb it because I can't turn a blind eye, but also we can't really we don't really have a lot of power in a lot of cases with what's happening in some other countries. So, is there some way that as a collective we can affect change through our energy? I think that's the question.
Well, part of it is you're doing it.
Yeah.
You're doing it, I'm doing it, and this is the time. It's interesting we're talking about this. I was just explaining this to someone earlier today, but we're living at a time period where 15 years from now, people are going to look back and go, wow, can you believe they used to do this?
Yeah.
Can you believe they used to do that? And we're watching it happen. It's almost like when you talk to someone that's 100 years old and they say, I remember when people had to do this, like during when the Great Depression, people that had gold had to go and turn it in, and they'll say they had to turn in what their family had. Um, but you go back to strong situations that you remember of that were catastrophic to humanity. And those are the times where we have the biggest leap, we have the biggest change. Right now, we're going through that. And part of that change that's happening is because there's more light coming in. You've heard people talk about the Christ consciousness that's
Yeah.
happening. Well, it's sort of like everybody connected. Depending on what religion you're in, or if you are religious, you may think, okay, this is about Christ coming back to earth. But it's not. It's about the Christ consciousness that stems from Creator that lights up within all of us, that lights up within you, that lights up within the person next to you, and it begins to stream out. And eventually, those that are not evolving will eventually just sort of fall off. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but it's like that mindset will become extinct. And so it's never like one gigantic thing and they're all like, okay, we're going to do it now.
Hmm.
It takes people to make a point that shows this is what I'm doing
Yeah.
and this is a change that I'm feeling because I don't want to go to bed at night knowing I've been contributing to that. And so there's going to be more people that are going to be waking up and realizing rather than saying, oh, but there's nothing I can do. It's kind of a wuss way to look at it. Well,
Yeah.
there is, because if you can live with yourself, I guess there's nothing you can do. But if you live with integrity, you'll say, I can't be a part of that. I can't fund that type of,
Right.
and so you evolve beyond it. And the example I was checking out the other day, and there was a young guy checking out, and then a lady who was probably like 70 years old as the checker, and he was commenting every one of my grocery items. I didn't say
Were
anything.
you at Trader Joe's?
I wasn't. I was probably behind you in line, but he was commenting on everything, and he was like, "What are they going to do? Make milk out of wood soon?" I let it go,
Yeah.
and but then the checker said, well, what are you? Are you one of them vegans? And I said, I am. And she said, I could never give up meat. I'm like, okay, I could let go of the joke about that, but I'm like, let's go, girl.
Yeah.
Because I'm from the hood, so I can get in there. But I said, it's harder for older people for old people to let go of meat and alcohol because it was programmed in their mind in the 70s and 80s. Hey, if you're rich, you're going to go have a nice big steak or you're going to have a drink, with your
Yeah.
meal. And so that mentality went into their upbringing. So as they got older on their birthdays or celebration, what they want to do? They wanted to go get a steak and a drink. It was genius. I mean, when you
Yeah.
think about the programming that the meat industry had. And so it kind of goes back to the old ads from the 50s where it showed a mom holding a newborn and a cigarette. And it was a cigarette ad. It said, Moms need a cigarette. New moms always need a cigarette. And she's like holding her baby and a cigarette. It's just like, what's wrong with this picture,
Yeah.
But we can laugh about now. Well, that's the emerging that we're going through. And when I was in that moment with her, I could have easily taken the high road and just ignored it. But I'm like, no, after the wood milk and this is an educational moment. And so I said, of course, it's harder for old people
Yeah.
to break the mentality and to think young and healthy and care about their body. But for young people, that weren't raised in the dynasty and all that era of having a steak and a drink, they want to live longer. They're exercising. They're playing pickleball. They have a healthy mindset. They don't have one foot in the grave and one on a banana peel. So I said, I get it for you. And I said, but if you look at aisle 14, that's all seasoning, and you take a piece of meat and a piece of cardboard and you season it right, they're going to taste the
It's the
same.
same. Yeah.
And she sat there, her mouth dropped open, and the guy looking at me, and I smiled and I said, "Have a great day." And he was like, "Oh, I guess she just handed it to us, but it really kind of goes to say this is a big time that we're all living in and the changes that humanity is making. We may think, "Oh, what can one person do? What one step can I make to make a difference?" Like you said, everyone's connected. And as we make these steps, we're going to pull more of our brothers and sisters up to make these changes. And she did ask me, she's like, well, how long have you been vegan? I knew she did it to see, well, if you've only been vegan for 6 months, you're probably going to die soon for lack of protein, And so when you come at her and go, I wasn't raised vegan, but it's been 20 years now. She looks at you like 20, and you're still standing, like you're still upright. Well, yeah, not only that, but no cholesterol, no high blood
Hmm.
pressure, it's like it's perfect. But humanity is going through that Christ consciousness of awakening and realizing harm no one, and to recognize we're all getting through this. Just hold hands, drop the old mentality of like you're above somebody else because we're not. We're
Yeah.
absolutely not. There's nobody greater than the other person. Everybody has their gifts. Everybody walking this planet has spiritual gifts. When they decide to open it, when they decide to activate that is up to them. It's when they finally let go of the old programming they've either been born into, they've accepted, or that's been drilled into them by their religious beliefs or their culture, and they begin to ask questions for themselves and feel out the world around them. That's when more people will change. And it's happening. It's really
Yeah.
happening.
That's exciting. That's good news.
Yes,
Do you think that we are going to have alien contact? That's a,
I
uh,
really do. I mean,
yeah.
that's one of the reasons why I'm really working on this book right now, and all the stories and everything. Yes, I absolutely do. I feel like there already has been,
Yeah, for sure.
but it's what is deemed, can humanity handle it? By
Yeah.
what governs us in society. Can these people handle it? Can the good people of the world handle this now? And
Right.
many cultures will talk about visitors from other places. They've talked about it. It's known. But can Western society handle it. You know, that information has been withheld because they don't want chaos. Maybe they'll decide to release a little bit more when they want to distract us while something else is going on, because
Yeah.
that tends to be when the information comes out. To get your mind off of this, let's bounce the ball over here and we'll talk about
Oh,
the
good. So it should be any day now.
exactly, you know?
Yeah.
And that's exactly how you need to see it. It's
Right.
because we're right on it. And as more and more come out, the bigger changes happen with wow, there's people out there, you know. So it's going to be really eye-opening and a spiritual experience for so many. Because
I
I do
hope
feel
so.
like more light codes will be coming in for all of us.
I hope so, because my belief is that they're here to help us and that, like any being, yes, there are ones that have malicious intent, but I believe that more of them than not are here to help us evolve, help us protect ourselves from one another, help us keep our earth safe, help us love one another. And it's since I was a kid, 70s, 80s, all the movies were about them coming and then the government being they're here to kill us and attacking them and misunderstanding their intent. I think that's really what's happening is there's so much fear mongering around it. And I think that if they are being violent, it's to protect themselves because we're the ones shooting them down and taking them captive. So they're only protecting themselves. But I don't think they're here to harm us. I think they're here to help us.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And the fact that they also recognize that not all of us feel the same way as, you know, there's different groups of us that are accepting. There's different
Yes.
groups of us that hold the light. The other night, I did a grounding meditation, a group grounding meditation. And while everyone's spirit guides and angels were in the group healing and working on them, these light beings came in and they were coming in from different directions. And I started crying. I s I don't know how to describe it, but it was like a spiritual tailgate party.
Oh,
It was like they came in, they were like, "Okay, cool, this is happening," and they were swirling around, and then afterwards they left, but I was like, it is the most I'm still thinking about it and getting chills, but it was amazing because they were coming in from different directions, like, "Oh, let's go check out what's going over there. What's going on?"
yeah. I just feel safe around it. I'm like, please bring them down. Please bring them here. We need help. We need to stop hurting one another. I saw Herbie Hancock last night at the Hollywood Bowl, and oh, it was so good. And he started off by talking about how we are all one human species. We're all one race, and that is the human species. And he talked a lot about that, and I got chills because it sounds simple, but he's on it. He gets it. And he talked a lot about channeling that love, being kind to every human being. He talked about you may not like these leaders. You may not like people in your family. You may not, but you are all the same. So treat everyone with kindness and love and know that, and I don't know if everybody really liked that message because he was named names of people that a lot of people have issues with. And he's like, but they're just people. They're just
Uh,
people. They have their good side and their bad side, and he's like, so do you. He's like, they
right.
have their darkness, you have your darkness. They have their good qualities, you have your good qualities. So it's, kind of you can be angry, you can hate, you can not like them, but remember that we are not actually separate. And I loved hearing that from him and hearing that message. And I was like, I hope everyone's understanding what he's meaning because I'm sure there are a lot of people in LA that did not appreciate saying, I know I'm not gonna be kind to that jerk or whatever. But it was like it was so beautiful to hear um that wisdom and just looking out in the crowd and there were thousands of people and he's just spreading this message of just please be kind to one another. Why are we fighting? Stop it. Stop it. And I hope that we will one day. I hope I don't know. I don't want to be negative. I just don't know that it will be in my lifetime. But I do hope that we can find that more and more of that common ground, more and more of waking up to who we really are and remembering where we come from. And that's, I think, I'm not saying I'm here to change the world or nothing, but I do love
Right.
having people like you on that to just keep reinforcing that idea of, first of all, there is no death.
Right.
Second of all of the horrible things that are happening because of fear. And not to be a Pollyanna, but yes, while those things are happening, also remember to ground. Also remember that like you have more power than you know. So I would say, what are your parting words for today? Because I'd love to have you on again. Um, uh, just what is it today that you feel that people really need to know?
Remember that everyone's here for their spiritual mission, regardless if it's someone that's sleeping on the park bench or someone that's walking into the law firm. Everyone is here for their spiritual mission. And that person on the park bench, there's a purpose. Even though they may not be doing what they came here to do,
Hmm.
because the guy that's going to law firm every day sees this dude on the park bench, it keeps him moving forward. You know,
Oh,
so
that's good
there's
perspective.
lots of wheels in motion. And I will tell you, during our lifetime, we will see big changes here.
Right.
We're going to see it during this lifetime because there's so many that have incarnated with the Christ consciousness light to ignite. And there's some people that when they come together, you see the light begin to change, just like that domino effect.
Yeah.
It's
Thank you for that hopeful
beautiful.
message. Thanks for leaving us with that hopeful message. Everyone, you can contact Catherine at her website, which I'll have the link below, but it's katherinebranham.com, right?
Mhm.
And it has her books, and we'll have the spelling of her name. It's Branham in case you are visually impaired. But of course, then you also have excellent tools to help you find the website. I'm all of your books call to me. I love hearing your stories, and it's very digestible. I really just can't get over how nice this book, like how it's easy, it's big print for us old people that have trouble seeing now. It's just an easy read, and really affirming and really helpful. So I encourage everyone to go and also book readings with her. I would highly suggest that. I know you're busy, but you still have time,
You
which is amazing. So thank you for being the light that you are and the friend that you are. It's so good to connect with you again, and thanks for being on the show. It's You make it what it is, so I appreciate that.
you're a delight.
You are too. Thank you.